Hi guys, this is Klazart bringing another audio commentary, and this is Game 5 of this epic Pro League Winners League matchup between Samsung Khan and Team 1. The teams are tied at 2-2, Bisu just having mopped the floor with Hades, and it looks like this is going to be Bisu versus Jangbi. Jangbi at the 12 o'clock position in yellow, it looks like. Bisu is at the bottom of the map at around the 6 o'clock position in blue. This is Destination, it's a two-player map, so it looks like Bisu's at the bottom, Jangbi's at the top, Bisu blue, Jangbi yellow. And Bisu, just having mopped the floor up with Hades, must have given a glance to Best afterwards to say, what was all the fuss about? And Best must have been thinking, God, I really made this guy look better than he is, or I really made it look a lot harder than it seemed to be with Bisu, who just strolled through Hades like he wasn't there, just cut him open. And that's the kind of play that has really made Bisu famous and made him the champion that we know he is, with the ability to decimate Zerg opponents almost at will. Bisu destroys Zerg players the way July destroys Protoss players, and it's going to be an epic matchup when those two face up again. But right here, right now, this is Protoss versus Protoss, and this is going to be an interesting matchup because Bisu has another big Protoss versus Protoss game to play, and that's going to be against Stork, and I believe that game is actually supposed to follow this one, so that's going to be interesting to say the least, and it'll be interesting whether Bisu decides to reveal any of his strategies. Obviously it's going to be on a different map, I don't think it's on Destination, so it'll be interesting to see if Bisu decides to reveal any of his strategies. Jangbi, meanwhile, has quietly been amassing his career. He hasn't really done anything big, but he's a pretty solid player, and as a stalwart of the Samsung Khan team, so it's an interesting choice by Samsung Khan to send Jangbi out instead of Stork. Obviously Stork wants to be saved, they want to save Stork for his 1v1, they don't want to expose him to Bisu too early to give him the best chance of upsetting Bisu in that matchup. Both players scouts crossing, both players with fairly similar builds to start off with, getting the pylon into gateway, and yeah, it's gonna be a fascinating matchup to see how Bisu copes. It's very interesting to me that Samsung have held back Stork, who is probably one of their best players, if not the best player in their entire team, and the fact that he's been held back by Code January shows a lot of savvy, I think, on the part of January. But should Bisu triumph over Jangbi here, she might be forced to bring Stork out anyway, or should Jangbi fall, who is she left with to produce but Stork? But I guess again, Stork not wanting to be overexposed. Both probes in each other's bases, and I'm sure you guys can start to hear the birds in the background again. They have returned. I'm actually commenting this game from my living room right now, having downloaded the VODs. I've hooked up my laptop to my 47-inch I'm sorry, I meant television set. Sorry, 47-inch television set. And I'm really enjoying watching this game on the wide screen. It's something else I gotta tell you, although the resolution isn't as high as I'd like it to be. And Manor Pylon, meanwhile, by Bisu in Jangbi's base. I'm not sure he's gonna like that a lot. Bisu continuing to scout around with the probe, annoying and harassing Jangbi. We saw Bisu do that just so brilliantly in the last game. Bisu now sending a Zealot in as well, maybe try and sneak a couple of probe kills against Jangbi, since Jangbi's forced to use a Zealot to try and take that minor pylon down. But we saw Bisu was so effective with his multitasking in that last game, the way he was able to spread those Zealots around and just keep Hades on the back foot, and just all of a sudden Hades was wiped out. It was just so sudden, although I think the key was the battle at the 3 o'clock position that allowed Bisu to wipe out a lot of Hades' forces. And now Bisu's got the Zealot in there, trying to pick off a couple of probes. I don't think, and looks like one of the probes went down. I think Bisu's managed to get a probe kill. Looks like Bisu's got the Zealot's down. I'm not sure if Bisu got a second probe kill. Obviously, Bisu lost his scouting probe in the process as well. We're not sure about Jangbi's scouting probe, whether it's still there or whether it's gotten taken out. Looks like Bisu upgrading Dragoon range in his Cybernetics core. Jangbi's got his Cyber core up as well. So Jangbi's been forced to produce the extra Dragoon, maybe in anticipation of that Zealot. Bisu's got a Dragoon out as well. So Bisu's ramp blocked off with the Zealot and the Dragoon. I'm sure he's either killed Jangbi's probe or ushered it away. So I guess first blood to Bisu in getting that probe kill, but he did lose his Zealot in the process. Jangbi's just pushing out, trying to get some scouting information with his Dragoon. He's going to find the ramp blocked by Bisu's Zealot with the Dragoon standing behind it. So this is gonna continue on into the mid game. Neither player really scoring big points early on, as is common with Protoss. Neither player trying anything extravagant. Looks like Robotics Facility going up for Jangbi, and also for Bisu. So identical builds. This truly is a mirror match of both players with identical builds thus far. Both players putting up the robotics facility. And this is an interesting map, Destination. I'm not a huge fan of it personally, especially when there are mixed races, but I think for mirror matchups, it might prove to be an interesting match. Those bridges, those narrow bridges at each end have a lot of potential for catching an opponent and just casting mass storms. I can just see a massive massacre on those bridges. Be like planting the C4 on the bridges and inviting your opponents to try and come across it and blowing them when they're standing in the middle of the bridge. And that's exactly what you could expect to see from some of the good Protoss players. And Bisu has just shown us how effective he can be with storms in the previous game. You can expect to see some more owned storming from Bisu probably. And it'll be interesting to see how Jangbi copes and how he approaches the challenge of playing against Bisu on this matchup. So far, again, as I said, both players with virtually identical builds. Observatory going down for Jangbi. Robotic support base, so finally some divergence in the strategies. Bisu putting the robotic support bay down, and both players are going to try and harass each other, and it's just going to be interesting which player is going to have the better harass, and that's going to really be what's going to really decide this game. Bisu managed to sneak his scout through, sneak his probe through to the bridges, and he's seen Jangbi's probe sitting at his natural expo. Looks like Jangbi's gearing up to start up his nexus, and Jangbi does indeed start up his expo, so he's built his robotics facility and his observatory, and is now gone for the nexus. So Jangbi's slightly faster in terms of his economy than Bisu, but that also means that he's going to be a little bit slower. I think it's a smart move by Jangbi because he knows that by the time Bisu's shuttle gets over, it's going to take that little bit longer, and he might be in a decent position to defend, especially since he's got observers, so he might be able to see that shuttle coming. He's positioning, Bisu meanwhile is positioning his forces on the bridge. Jangbi's got 4 Dragoons spread out on his bridges, but the question is going to be whether or not he's going to be able to defend, and Jangbi just setting a pylon up behind his base towards the western part of his base, again, to try and give himself advance warning of Reaver harass coming from Bisu. And this is going to be critical here. Bisu's going to need to do some damage with his Reaver. Bisu waiting for that Reaver to pop out, and Bisu's going to need to do some damage because Jangbi otherwise is going to be ahead on economy because Jangbi has started up his nexus. Looks like Bisu's put his nexus down as well. I'm just seeing a little blue blob on the minimap where Bisu's natural expo is, so I have a feeling Bisu's put his nexus down as well. So it's all about whether or not Bisu can inflict damage with his earlier Reaver. Bisu obviously going for the earlier Reaver, Jangbi opting for the Observer. Jangbi's Observer coming in, and looks like there might be some path crossing going on here. Bisu's shuttle, and Jangbi is going to spot the shuttle. So Jangbi has spotted Bisu's shuttle with the Reaver coming in, and immediately you can see him pulling 3 Dragoons off the line where he was defending his bridges to try and deny Bisu any further scouting opportunities. You immediately see him pulling it, and Bisu has seen the Observer, chasing it with his own Observer, and Dragoon's going to try and take it out. Jangbi's going to just manage to pull his Observer out in time, but Bisu's shuttle is halted mid-path because Bisu has realized, and Bisu's losing precious time here. Bisu knows he has to inflict damage on Jangbi, but he's also realized that that shuttle has been spotted by the Observer, and very fortunate for Jangbi. Well, he did send his Observer in early, so you can say that there was luck involved, but you've got to give him a little bit of credit as well for planning his build. And I think tactically it was probably a better move than what Bisu executed. So now Bisu's having to try and rejig his strategy. He's going to try and approach the natural expo from the other direction, and he's also going to try and put a little bit of pressure. But Jangbi's anticipated this. He's seen that the shuttle hasn't arrived, the Reaver hasn't arrived, so he's pulling his forces back. Bisu with a drop in Jangbi's natural expo. Scarab shot goes off, but Jangbi, great reflexes there, pulling the probes. Scarab doesn't hit anything, and Bisu's forced to retreat once again. So he's gonna try and put some pressure on, circle around with that Reaver, and this is critical that he does some damage to Jangbi's economy. Jangbi obviously still doesn't have his Reaver out, so he's being forced to defend with just his Dragoons. Bisu with the slightly superior force on the ground, it would seem 3 Dragoons, 3 Zealots, as well as the Reavers, but obviously the problem with those bridges means that he can't just barrel down, and Jangbi with a good spread and a position of his units. Bisu with the second Reaver out, it'll be interesting whether he goes back to pick that up and tries to break down this front door. He doesn't seem to be able to. And Bisu once again with a Reaver drop. Again, the Scarab shot fired. Jangbi pulling the probes off the line. The Scarab is chasing, and it doesn't hit any probes. So Bisu, with his first 2 Scarabs, not doing any damage to Jangbi's economy. Jangbi able to leave 2 Dragoons also back in his base, just in case Bisu decides to circle around the other side and try and come at him from another direction. But Jangbi so far has held Bisu off, and you've got to feel that gives Jangbi a moderate, if not heavy, well, not heavy, certainly not heavy, but perhaps a mild advantage early on in the game, because he did get, and Jangbi with an Observer sneaking back into Bisu's base, but this time Bisu prepared, takes the Observer down this time, and Jangbi loses one of his Observers. But Bisu looks like he's got an Observer in Jangbi's base as well, and he's seen, and that's why, and Bisu now trying to take Jangbi's Observer out, taking Bisu's Observer out. Bisu had that Observer in, and that's why he didn't try and circle around with the Reaver, because he saw those 2 or 3 Dragoons sitting there, and Jangbi must have realized that there was a reason why Bisu wasn't coming out, although it didn't need to be anything that technical. It could just have been a simple fact of Jangbi's Observer popping out the robotics facility right on top of where Bisu's Observer was sitting, and Jambi happening to have Dragoons in place to take out Bisu's Observer. So Bisu's Observer gone down, as well as Jambi's. Bisu now with double shuttles. He really needs to put the pressure on. He's left a Reaver and Dragoon there. I'm not sure if he's got enough Reavers to full with shuttles. He's about to have ground units as well. So Bisu really committing himself to this attack here. He's just halted yet again, pushing in a Dragoon. So he's seen that Jambi has spread out his forces, because Bisu, remember, lost his Observer. So Jambi, meanwhile, with the Templar Archives going up, and Bisu trying to commit himself, but Jambi seems to be reading Bisu's play quite well here and anticipating well. I'm not sure if he's seen the second shuttle that Bisu has, and